Hello and welcome. Two central points of this particular show. Let me set it up. Today morning, I was doing Michael Clarke's podcast, the Beyond 23 podcast. I think they're putting the show out today evening, or there will be a promo out. They've already put it out as a story. I think from the Beyond 23 podcast Instagram handle. Michael will also, and it's a long podcast. It's about 35 odd minutes. So they will put it out the entire show from their handles tonight, and we will also kind of accept the collab on Rev Sports handles. But that's not the point. The point is when we were recording that podcast, one of the chunks was on Virat Kohli, and something very interesting came up because I asked Michael that he has been a great batter. He has been a great captain for Australia. And I asked Michael that do you actually think that Virat Kohli can overcome this slump and overcome the off stump problem? Because the outside off stump problem is the issue, right? At this point in time, that's the kind of issue that Virat is facing. And is that something that Michael reckons Virat can solve? That's kind of that led to a fairly longish discussion as to what Michael Clarke reckons is the issue with Virat Kohli's off stump problem and how he can solve that. Firstly, and I also asked him that do you think, because there is a debate raging in India at the moment, that Virat Kohli should give up on red ball cricket. Virat Kohli should give up on red ball cricket, or the selectors should drop him, and what should he do ahead of the England series? And obviously on Rohit Sharma and Virat Kohli both, but Rohit Sharma is already he stepped down or stepped aside, whatever you want to call it. But Virat Kohli is one of those players who India banks on, and will he be part of the England tour? And there's so much talk. Will he have to play domestic cricket? How does he accommodate domestic cricket? Because there's so much of white ball from now on right up to the Champions Trophy and then the IPL and all of that. And then once the IPL ends, there will only be about 4.5 weeks before the first test match in England on the 20th of June. So how does and where does he get enough red ball cricket, and how does he prepare himself for the for the Pataudi Trophy in England? So this was the context with which we kind of entered into this particular segment with Michael Clarke, and he had something fascinating. He had something absolutely fascinating to say, which is what I'm going to share with you guys now. The second question that I want to address, the second question that I want to address, the second question that I want to address as part of this show is, there is a lot of talk about about Jasprit Bumrah. There's so much talk about Jasprit Bumrah and the fact that, oh, you know what, Jasprit Bumrah isn't fit enough, and Kapil Paji bowled 284 overs and Manoj Prabhakar bowled 250 overs in 1991. So this is a big problem that, oh, Jasprit Bumrah bowled 150 overs. So why are you making? Is there an issue with the internet? No. Why are you making a mountain of a molehill as far as Jasprit Bumrah is concerned? He should be fitter and he should be stronger and whatever you want to call it. So there is that. Let me settle the Kapil Dev, Jasprit Bumrah, Manoj Prabhakar thing and put it in context first. Kapil Paji, there is no debate. There is no debate. One of the fittest players of all time. Take that. Kapil Paji's fitness was legendary. He was one of the greatest athletes of Indian cricket, and one of the greatest athletes that you can possibly see. One of the greatest athletes India has ever produced will always be Kapil Dev Nikhanj. Having said that, to say that Jasprit Bumrah is a relatively lesser athlete, or he's not fit enough, or all of that is nonsense. 1991-92, Kapil Dev, Manoj Prabhakar, that particular series in 91, 70 days for 5 test matches, 67, 68 days. This particular series, if you take, the series started on the 22nd of November and it ended on the 6th of January, 7th, whatever you want to call it. So effectively 31 days there and 9 days in November, 30 days in December. So 30 plus 9 and another 5-6 days in January. You're talking about 45 days. So on the one hand, you are talking about 45 days for a 5 test series which Jasprit Bumrah was playing, and you're talking about a 70-day series, 67, 68-day series which Kapil Paji and Manoj Prabhakar were playing. There is absolutely no way you can compare the two. Imagine the 25-day gap or the 25-day buffer that 1991-92, and cricket has evolved. Cricket has evolved. You will not get that kind of a gap anymore. Uh, Cricket has evolved. You will not get that kind of a gap anymore. I think there's a bit of an internet glitch because it's raining outside and I can't go out. I'm kind of doing it from the hotel internet. So it's been one of those days, very rainy, very windy, one of those days. So just bear with me on that front. But the point that I was trying to make, 25 days buffer as far as 1991-92 is concerned and now. So if you say that Jasprit Bumrah is any less fit or anything like that, it's absolute rubbish. Secondly, Kapil Paji, even at his peak, if you see the way Kapil Paji and Manoj Prabhakar bowled, swing, Jasprit Bumrah is putting in 145 Ks, 140 Ks. That's a real lot of effort. And 140 plus, that kind of speed, that kind of pace is not easy. So in a 44-day spell, for a bowler to bowl 45-day spell, a bowler to bowl 150 plus overs, and thereafter to complain that he's not fit enough. And I've seen even journalist colleagues tweet about this. I think is an unfair tweet. I absolutely think it's an unfair tweet. It is a kind of one of those sensationalist kind of tweets which I don't think puts the whole story into context. Coming back to and I think this Jasprit Bumrah point needs to be settled once and for all. He's no less fit than anyone. To give the Kapil Paji example is wrong. Kapil Paji is a legend in his own right and a great of Indian cricket and one of the greatest athletes. But make no mistake, 70 days or 67, 68 days for 5 tests and 45 days for 5 tests is chalk and cheese. To use that to kind of extrapolate that bowling overs and put it in the Jasprit Bumrah story is not fair. Coming to the Michael Clarke story, a lot of people asking me when will the podcast be out. It will be tonight. It will be tonight in the Beyond 23 podcast, which is Michael's podcast. That's his show rather. So it will be out tonight or maximum, I think, tomorrow morning. It is going to be out tonight. They've already put it out as a story. If you go and check the Beyond 23 podcast, it's already out there. Michael had actually told me this long back. He had requested me to do the podcast about a month and a half back when I was kind of planning my trip here. He said, "Mate, can you do it on the 8th of January?" I said, "Yes, because I'm leaving for India on the 9th." And Michael has always been a great friend of mine. Every time I've asked him for time and asked him for an interview, he has never said no to me. So it was only natural that I would want to do that podcast for him, and we did it, and it was a beautiful one. We discussed at length. We discussed Bumrah, we discussed Kohli, we discussed Sharma, we discussed Sam Constas, we discussed Andrew McDonald's comment about India intimidating, we discussed the Champions Trophy, we discussed the England series, we discussed a whole lot of points. We discussed the turning points of this series, and we also rated India and Australia. You guys can listen to the entire podcast when it's out. But more importantly, we did an extensive interview after that as well for the Rev Sports platform, and Michael, being Michael, made some fascinating points. Here's the point that he made. I am one of those people, and I have to sort of confess this, that I kept saying that why is Virat not leaving those balls? Why is Virat not leaving those balls outside the off stump? He's continuously poking at those balls. He's taking a dab, whether it is on fifth stump, whether it is on fourth, sixth stump, or fourth stump, and he's getting out behind. And if you've seen the broadcasts out of the Border Gavaskar Trophy, we've repeatedly kind of alluded to this, right? That Virat Kohli has that weakness, but unfortunately he's not doing much to address it. He gets drawn into that shot and he plays that shot and he's getting out. So why is it that he's repeatedly making the same mistake? I asked Michael this straight, and he said, look, it is not about Virat leaving those balls. Because if you see, he has left some balls outside off, it's not as if he has not. He has played some balls outside off stump as well and gotten runs, whether it is through a cover drive, Even in Sydney, the first scoring shot was through the covers, outside off, way outside off, and he played that shot. And he also got runs through, not just there, but square in that zone between mid off and cover by playing shots. And then he made this point that, look, you can't compare a Tendulkar with a Virat, because Virat wants to feel bat on ball. And by the way, you will listen to this interview tomorrow. You will listen to this interview tomorrow at 12 noon India, because Trisha is going to edit it and post produce it, and with our back end team, and we will be putting it out tomorrow at 12 noon with Michael Clarke. He makes this point beautifully, that Virat Kohli is a fundamentally different player compared to a Tendulkar. He wants to feel bat on ball. Unlike Tendulkar, who would leave, and that whole resilience and self discipline and all that, Virat loves to play in a very different manner compared to Tendulkar. So for Michael, what Virat needs to do is a mental adjustment. For the longest time, he was a quick mover with his feet. His feet would move fast. He would feel the ball. He had that confidence to be able to play that shot. And Michael reckons that it is not about leaving balls. He says if Virat Kohli all of a sudden says, I will leave all balls, he can practice it one. And this was fascinating to hear. He said he can practice it 1 million times at the nets, but it will not work in the match situation, because the moment you are under pressure, that net practice doesn't really help. The moment you are under pressure, the muscle memory will kind of take over, and you will go for that shot, because that has been your bread and butter go-to shot for the whole of your career. So for 14-15 years you have played that shot. So all of a sudden, if you decide to leave that ball outside off stump, leave every ball outside off stump, it is not going to work. So for him, the adjustment for Virat the adjustment for Virat is that he can get closer to the ball. He says, get closer to the ball, and there's absolutely no problems in getting closer to the ball. Sometimes, yes, you will get out, but he has to get closer to the ball, eyes on the ball, make contact, not from a distance, don't play away from your body. He can do that with one, better feet movement, and two, with more confidence. At this point in time, he's lacking that confidence. He's in two minds whether to leave those balls and whether to play those balls. And because he wants to leave those balls, and his muscle memory says go play those balls because that's what you have done all through your career, he's going through this strange patch where despite wanting to leave these balls, he's actually playing them. And he in the 2018 series, Virat left so many balls outside off stump of James Anderson. But Virat is one in Australia. He has played so many balls outside off. Take a look at the 14 series. Take a look at the 18 series, and he has scored a hell lot of runs in Australia by feeling bat on ball even outside off. So Michael reckons that rather than just closing it down like a Tendulkar did in 2004 in Sydney, Michael reckons that yes, Virat Kohli should just make these adjustments mentally. One, that he needs to get closer to the ball. He needs to second get that confidence back that he can score runs outside off, rather than telling himself that he will leave everything and try and sort of play one of those innings which is against his character. He also said that Tendulkar at a time when he played the 2004 innings, and Virat when he's playing this, there is a 7-year gap. So for example, Tendulkar in 2004 was 30 years old. Virat at this point in time is 34, 35 years old. So there is a difference there. Virat has played 5 more years of international cricket, is on the other side of 30, getting to the other side of 30. Tendulkar was far younger. He was 30 years old, 1973 born. So 30, 31 years, not even 31, because Tendulkar's birthday. So if you keep that in mind, Tendulkar was 30 years old, and that is something. 24th April is his birthday. That's something that you have to keep in mind when you're comparing a Virat Kohli and a Sachin Tendulkar. The other thing that Michael Clarke mentions, and I found that fascinating, and I said, do you see Virat Kohli in your red ball team? Do you think that Virat Kohli should play the India A, maybe even skip a part of the IPL, or maybe play for India A straight after the IPL is over? If Royal Challengers of Bengaluru don't make it to the playoffs, then immediately, or if they make it to the playoffs, then the moment the playoffs are done and the IPL is over, should he go and play the India A games in England? And Michael's point was tremendous. He said Virat Kohli, the captain, whoever is the captain, whether it is Bumrah, Bumrah should be the red ball captain going forward. The Indian board, the selectors, the coach, they should sit down and say, okay, what is priority? What is priority? And you work it out now. Because if you play continuous cricket, he will play the England ODIs, the Champions Trophy, the IPL, and then straight, if he goes and trains, anyone will be mentally fatigued. So you work it out in a manner saying, okay, this is what is priority. Champions Trophy is priority for India. Done. After that, the IPL is priority as a brand and as whatever. The tournament is massive, and without Virat Kohli, the tournament will lose a bit of its sheen. So that is priority. After that, England, massive tournament for us. So plan it from now. Plan it from now and tell yourself that he would obviously want red ball practice before he goes into the England series. So plan it from now. And I then asked him, do you actually see Virat Kohli in India's red ball team in England? He said, look, somebody who can get 103 test matches back. Somebody, even in the New Zealand series in the first test, he got a 70 odd. Someone who has looked very good on the onside, except that one weakness outside of no perceptible weakness. He's fit enough. There is no problems in other ways. How do you guys even say that he should retire or he should leave or he should be dropped? Because he said, if I was selected, I would want Virat Kohli in my test team for as long as he wants to, because he still has a lot to contribute there, and he 100% can solve this problem with confidence, and if he starts getting closer to so and this is his statement. As I said, you will listen to the interview tomorrow. He said, if one team loses out, if Virat Kohli is dropped from the Indian test team, that is India. He said, if Virat Kohli is not playing the Indian test team, the only person or the only team who will lose out is India. And thereafter, he also made this point that, look, these wickets, this series has been one of the spiciest wickets that Michael has seen. The Sydney wicket, for example, ICC has rated it satisfactory, and he actually used the word dangerous. He said, did you see the ball to Steve Smith? When you see that ball to Steve Smith, you know. And he said, Sydney cricket ground is my favorite, and yet this is the spiciest wicket or the greenest wicket that he has seen all through his life. And he said, look, had this been in India and 15 wickets fell, there would have been an uproar in Australia saying, "Arey, 2 days the match ended, 2.5 days the match ended." Here also the match ended in 2.5 days. That wicket wasn't the best cricket wicket for sure. So when you are batting in such a spicy wicket, and right through the series, if you see whether it is the pink ball test match in Adelaide, whether it is this one, some of the wickets have been extremely spicy. So Michael was putting it in context, and I thought he was objective. He was not being biased towards Virat, because I was asking him the probing questions. And he was asking me the questions about how the Rohit issue was handled, and we think, can it have been handled better? What do I think of the way it was handled, and what do I think of India's priorities going forward? And so we were actually asking each other a lot of questions, but I thought one needs to come and share with you this Virat Kohli point, because I actually found it interesting. Problems with spin like viral in England or in Australia. How much in Australia did Nathan Lyon play a part? So if you see, spin is being almost taken out of the equation in Australia like viral. So to say Virat has a problem against spin doesn't really make sense here, because Nathan Lyon has been a tremendous bowler in Australia. And Michael and I, we were chatting that, look, if the conditions were like this, and if Cameron Green was fit, Australia could have easily gone with a Cameron Green and a Bo Webster or a Mitch Marsh, because you don't need Nathan Lyon. Nathan Lyon hardly played a part right through the series because of the nature of the wicket. Spin was taken out literally of the equation. So you have to keep all of these things in mind. You have to keep all of these things in mind when you are putting things in context. But if you ask me, this is Michael's opinion, and I had to share the opinion. As I said, watch the full interview tomorrow. It is being edited at the moment. Today, my team is on leave. It's our last day here in Sydney. We leave for India tomorrow by the Singapore Airlines flight around midday. So we leave our hotel pretty early, around 8:39 a.m. in the morning. So sort of the rest of the team is on leave today. So you will watch the interview tomorrow at 12 noon. And the other thing is, however much Virat practices at the nets, and this is something he repeatedly said. He said he can go to the nets and bat for hundreds and hundreds of balls, but the moment the match happens and he's under pressure or the situation demands something, the situation is one of pressure. India has lost a couple of wickets. The context is so very different, unlike in the nets, that his muscle memory will tell him to play a particular kind of shot. And Michael has a very good game sense. I've known Michael for the longest time. I've known him, and his understanding of red ball and white ball cricket has been top notch, absolute top notch. For example, when we spoke of Sam Constas, and I asked him about the Andrew McDonald question, that Andrew McDonald said, "Oh, you know what? India was intimidating." He said, "Mate, we have been taught to give it all the time. Now, if we don't take it, then there is no point. I mean, we have to be ready to be take it to take it like we give it." So Sam Constas, 19-year-old, if he wants to be part of the action, if he's saying words, and if he's giving it to the Indians, he should absolutely be ready to take it as well. And I see no problems. He said when he was growing up, always they were told that if there are 11 Australian players with two batters, he said you swarm in, and we were told this, that swarm in and 11 people together, that's how you create impact. So absolutely no problems in the way the Indians swarmed in, and there was no intimidation whatsoever. And I liked it. He was calling spade a spade, and it was an excellent podcast. Fit Monk, you disagree? Perth 100 should not be rated high considering the situation. 100 is 100, then you don't rate Steve Smith's 100, high as well. 100 in a second inning situation is always 100, my friend. So, and by the way, whether you disagree, when you're calling a pitch a sleeping beauty, Melbourne was a belter as well. So it's not. And by the way, when we are calling the Melbourne belter, you're talking about Australia's second innings. You're talking about Australia's first innings. Melbourne was a batting beauty as well on day two when Steve Smith completed that 100. So let us give it to Steve Smith. He got 200s. Let us give it to Virat for the Perth 100. And by the way, if you disagree, you're welcome to. You're welcome to disagree. It is a healthy conversation, point of view and opinion, and nobody is imposing anybody's opinion on anybody. I am giving you what the man said. It is completely on you to agree or not agree or disagree and make up your own opinion. The point of a show is to put out all points of view, and he clearly had a point of view which I found of real interest. That's the problem, or that is the point. Just like the Bumrah issue, I thought by the way, coming to Bumrah, Michael made a fantastic point. I said, "How do you rate Bumrah?" He said, "Look, you cannot compare Bumrah with a Wasim Akram or a Curtly Ambrose or a Glenn McGrath because they did not play all formats. But when you take into account, Bumrah, and from the time T20 cricket came in, T20 ODIs and 50 overs and Test cricket, he is the best ever fast bowler that Michael has seen." Now, these are great words. That from the time T20 cricket came in, so 2006-7 to 2024, from 2006-7 to 2002 decades almost, Jasprit Bumrah has been the greatest fast bowler to have played in Australia and the greatest fast bowler in the world. So that was Michael Clarke. You will hear the interview tomorrow. He said, "Look, the way he led the attack, the way he was bowling coming round the wicket. The man can seam the ball, the man can swing the ball, the man can get it to straighten up, the man has the ability to move it. And here, because of the wickets, he did not even need reverse swing. So he has the ability to get reverse swing as well. Jasprit Bumrah is just a cut above everybody." And that for him, he said, "Look, I thought there's no question that this guy is the greatest fast bowler to have come to our shores and the greatest fast bowler to have played cricket. He's by far the greatest fast bowler that India has produced and maybe even Australia has seen." And we were comparing Scott Boland, and he said, "Look, Scott Boland on Australian soil is brilliant because he gets the ball with little, with a change in position, he gets the ball to nip back and the ball to move and gets seam and swing. But Scott Boland away, 4 test matches overseas for 7 wickets. He first has to go and deliver in Indian conditions, deliver in Sri Lankan conditions, in English conditions. Then we can say, okay, Scott Boland. But Australian conditions, Scott Boland is brilliant. Absolutely no problem. But in overseas conditions, in varied conditions, he has to go and deliver as well. Because unless Scott Boland is able to do that, this, the best is about being able to deliver in every kind of condition, in every place around the world. And Jasprit Bumrah has done exactly that. Jasprit Bumrah has done exactly that. 5 more minutes on this particular show. Orindam SG Derby show করো প্লিজ 100% করবো 100% করবো কালকে রাত্রিবেলা ফেরত চলে আসবো রাত্রিবেলা ফিরতে ফিরতে মাঝরাত হবে because the Singapore Airlines flight lands around 10:30 at night and by the time we get home it will be about 12. So uh, he needs to do only one thing, retire. Who says so? You. Who are you? Who are you that you will say somebody to retire? If I say stop commenting, will you listen to me? You have every right to comment. Let the selectors go and drop him. It is upon the selectors. How can you or I or anyone for that matter tell anyone to retire, Rajesh? You can't. If I tell you stop commenting, stop watching your phone, stop watching your videos, stop watching YouTube, stop watching, making calls, will you listen to me? It is your call. It is your call, for God's sake. If you are not good enough, let the selectors drop him. Let the selectors drop a Virat Kohli or a Rohit Sharma. It is not about the player having to retire. The player will put him up. Let the selectors tell them, no, you're not good enough, and drop them. Simple. If the selectors don't do that, if the selectors pick him, why should the player retire? So this is a nonsense argument that he should retire. Absolute nonsense. So, and I've forever said this, and I'm saying it again. We are no one to say a player should retire. It is upon the selectors to decide. If the selectors don't drop him, it's the selectors' problem. Then they don't have guts, isn't it? They don't have a spine. It's their problem. So it's not Virat Kohli's problem or Rohit Sharma's problem or anyone else's problem. So go blame the selectors, not the player. Other pacers, despite bowling friendly pitches, couldn't do much. 100% correct, Amit. 100% correct. Because both Michael and I, we were saying that if Jasprit Bumrah was there, 175, 180 would have been enough for India to close out that Sydney game. And he said, look, maximum 180. I agree. Usman Khwaja would not cross 10, 15. By his own admission, Usman Khwaja had been worked out by Bumrah. He got a 40 in that deciding innings, and Australia managed to win by 6 wickets. With Jasprit Bumrah, at the 175 80 runs, or even if it's 160, India would have made a match of it. So the fact that Mohammad Siraj, and we actually debated this, the fact that Mohammad Siraj had to take the premier bowler's role, I thought he wasn't able to handle the pressure. In the second innings in Melbourne and the first innings in Sydney, clearly, Mohammad Siraj was excellent. But the moment Jasprit Bumrah wasn't there, Mohammad Siraj found it a problem. So that I think, and Amit, I agree with you. I 100% agree with you that India's backup bowlers, India's number 2 bowler and number 3 bowler wasn't as good enough compared to any of the Aussie bowlers. So that's a fact for sure. That's a fact for sure. What's happening? Mayank Yadav, what's his status? I'm also waiting for an update because if Mayank Yadav is fit, he will make the T20 squad. And going forward, I want, between you and me, Rajesh, I want him to play red ball cricket for India. 150 plus, even if he gives me 2 test matches in the summer and he has the ball ability to hit the deck and get enough amount of bounce, I think Mayank Yadav has a great this thing. But obviously for that, he has to be fit enough. Champions Trophy, we will do a show. I think the team announcement will be on the 12th. Once I get back tomorrow on the 10th, I will give you my team. I'd done a show yesterday, but I will give you my team. And I'm of the opinion that Mohammad Shami should be part of the team. Ashdeep Singh should be part of the team. Balwinder Sandhu criticized, so what? Balwinder Sandhu is giving his opinion. I don't agree with him. And Balwinder Sandhu is a friend of mine, but I put it in context. He was talking about Kapil Paji, 70 days, 5 test matches, 45 days here. No disrespect to anyone. We can have different and varied points of view. Balluji is a good friend, but I don't think when you put things in context, you have to put the statistics of how long a series was. At that point, 2.5 months, and now 1.5 months. So that's a massive, massive thing to keep in mind. Shubman, I've said this 1 million times, friends. He has not done justice, and his game awareness, and I said it on Michael's show today, his game awareness leaves a lot to be desired. By darting down the track and giving it away against Nathan Lyon, by giving it away against Bo Webster, trying to hit him to cow corner, I thought he made a blunder. He should not have played those shots, and that for me is a bit of a problem as far as Shubman Gill is concerned. So if he wants to play number 3, if he wants to cement his position at number 3, he too needs to plan well so that he can go with the India A side to England and straight away after the IPL and play in England and get used to and then make a contribution. As a number 3 batter, telling contribution, tendency of playing, no. That's exactly what he's contesting. That that he gets runs. He also gets runs because he wants bat on ball, and that's why he was saying the feet get closer to the ball, because the moment you get closer to the ball, you won't nick it like that. And watch the interview. He explains it quite beautifully, quite beautifully. So watch the interview tomorrow. And as I said, you are welcome to disagree, but he makes a point from his standpoint as a former great batter, twice ICC Player of the Year or something like that, one of the greatest batters of our era, former Aussie captain. So listen to him, and then try and make up your own opinion. Red ball future, Jurel Reddy, Sundar, hope they get ample chances. I'm sure they will. But in England, I don't think it's the Sundar kind of wicket. It will not be. It will not be the Sundar kind of wicket. And that's where, because the England will. England will. If I were Sri Lanka, I would have given Australia dust bowls. I would have given Australia four spinners and say, go play. That's how it should be. And by the way, anyone who can prepare that Sydney wicket should not say one word on a pitch. Not one word from Australia after you prepare that Sydney wicket, where 15 wickets fall on day one. Okay, 15 wickets literally on day two. Sorry, if that is the case, that is the case. 15 wickets fell on day two, 11 wickets fell on day one. Match over in 2.5 days. Australia has no business criticizing turning wickets in Sri Lanka or India or anywhere else. The kind of wickets you have prepared in Australia, we have understood it amply clear. We haven't complained, so you should not complain either. No to point at all. Time to end this show. We will come back at 5 p.m. again. That will be our last show for this trip from Australia. And then obviously tomorrow is our travel day. But tomorrow we will put out the Michael Clarke interview, fabulous interview. Listen to it for his insights, and then make up your own opinion about Bumrah, about Kohli, about India's red ball future, how he sees it, because we were just having a great discussion. So that will be put out at 12 noon. And of course, on the way back tomorrow at 5 p.m., I'll do the live from Singapore airport from the business class lounge, because internet should be good there. So we will try and do the live from there, because the flight I think lands in Singapore around 5:30, and then the Calcutta flight is around 8:40. So there will be enough window to have a meal and do the 5 p.m. live. So that's the plan. Listen to Michael's podcast with me at Beyond 23 Cricket. They will put it out, and you can watch it on YouTube. You can watch it on the Instagram platform as well. And let me know what you think. And today at 5 p.m. will be our last show from Australia. There's a team dinner. All of us will go to Masala Theory, and we will do a show out of there. Jai Baba, answer my query. Okay, I'll answer yours and close the show. What is your question, my friend? What is your question? Now that Jasprit gonna miss CT England series, will be monetarily compensated for the lost match fees, tournament fees, and other allowance. I'll leave apart the fixed entry contract. I don't think any of this matters at all. At all. Match fees and all of this just doesn't matter. After where you are, your IPL contract and central contract and grade A and all of that, the match fees and all of this, it makes zero difference to any but on one of these elite cricketers. So Jai Baba, I don't think this is even relevant to Jasprit. Let's end it here. Let's end it here. And as I said, we'll be back at 5 p.m. Keep watching, keep following, because we try and bring you quality content and quality discussion, because that has been our priority. Thanks very much for joining me.